The reproduction of this content is not allowed without the express written consent of EBH Fitness, LLC. We're back. Hello, Borderland, hello. So, Coach, welcome to the Borderland Sports Report, where we go beyond the scoreboard and into the minds of the athletes and coaches. And today, we've got our partner in crime, I guess I could say. This is like 3 weeks in a row now, Coach. Coach Rubin Torres joining us from Franklin. Thank you, Coach, for joining us.
Yes, sir. You got it.
Hey, Coach, so big win this past week. I looked at the stats yesterday, and I started laughing. I was like, well, I guess the game plan had to change after our conversation. Well, based off the conversation where you guys were trying to pass the ball more. I mean, 6 touchdowns. That young man had himself a ball game.
Yeah. We did come out throwing the ball. I think our first 10 plays were 5 throws. They had Lubbock Monterey, credit to them. They kind of changed things up on us, changing their coverage a little bit, kind of committed more people to the box through a variety of ways. They ended up getting into more of an even front. The week previously against Abilene Wiley, and then they came out against us in an odd front. But they had a really big defensive line, kind of about a 6'6" DN that's headed to Utah. And then the weather kind of rolled in, and so that kind of changed the dynamic. We had about an hour and 10-minute halftime due to lightning. So, but our ground game, was hitting on all cylinders again, thankfully. But I did think that we threw the ball a lot more efficiently through the air. Didn't turn the ball over, made some big third down throws to keep drives going that led to touchdowns. And so I think as our quarterback, Lucas Garza, gets more comfortable and our young receivers, we'll be able to get, a little bit more balanced. But, I mean, at the end of the day, our identity is that big offensive line and our running backs.
Oh, yeah. And you said it, and I agree with you 100%. Whoever can control the line and run the ball gives themselves the best chance to win. I've seen it now 3 weeks with you guys, but also as we look around the Borderland with Canutillo as well. When teams can't stop the run, I go into it saying they're in trouble. And so you lean on your strengths and continue to work on the weaknesses. So who were some of the standouts from this week for you guys?
Well, if I look at the defensive side of the ball, of course, JB Guzman played extremely well at our middle linebacker position. I thought Stone Jessup really settled in at the outside backer spot and did some really good things for us in pass coverage as well as in the run. And then you look at our defensive line anchored by our 2 defensive ends, Adonis Bustillos, number 11. That doesn't get a lot of, pub in the media, but he's really done a great job all year at not just rushing the passer, but giving the opposing teams offensive tackles and tight ends fits. And then the last 2 weeks, Dante Acosta's really come on for us. He had a pick against Del Valle from the defensive end spot. And then this past week, he almost got another one. But his ability to rush the passer with his length and athleticism was giving Lubbock Monterey's big offensive line a lot of problems. And then our interior D tackles are growing up. I thought they played really good in some spots. Our secondary played really well in the first half, getting 2 picks. In the second half, we had some busted coverages and some communication issues that we've got to fix. But I think our defense played really, really well for a half of football. And I know that's not really reflected on the score. So there's some things in the second half that we needed to clean up, that we have to clean up going into this week. And then offensively, I think both our tackles, Justin Morales is just 2 weeks in a row shown why, in my opinion, he's one of the best offensive linemen to ever play in this city, and definitely a top tackle in the country. And then Eric, our right tackle, he's a UTEP commit, 6'6" kid, long, and really saw him answer the bell this week against a physical defensive line from Lubbock Monterey, and just really did a great job. And then, our guards as well, in providing those run lanes for Ernie and Trey. And I think Trey, number 20, our running back, I thought he did a great job, called upon, not only lead blocking, but carrying the ball, got himself a touchdown. And then, of course, Ernie's Ernie. I think there was a lot of guys, besides Ernie that really contributed. And again, our receivers are just doing a phenomenal job blocking and being selfless on the perimeter to create running lanes, after the line of scrimmage for our backs. And they came up with some really big catches, Santi and Stables. And I thought Lucas Garza, threw the ball and managed the game extremely well for us.
So when you say Trey, we talking a Treyu De La Riva?
Yes, a Trey. Okay. Yeah, we just call him Trey.
No. I just want for the people out there watching, so they know exactly who you're talking about. I want to make sure that young man gets his credit for what he did in the game, for sure.
And his role is continuing to grow with us. We're well aware that we have 2 really good backs and a third one in Damian Barrios, who's kind of adds a different dynamic to that backfield. One who just came back out and really contributed on special teams. But Atravius, he's a very dynamic runner, different runner than Ernie, but he's a north to south guy, tough, got great hands out of the backfield. Week 1, he caught some balls in the screen game that were big for us. But, definitely getting him more carries as we move on through this season, and kind of developing that 1-2 punch out of the backfield will be big for us moving forward, and Trey will be a big part of that.
Good deal. And that is a perfect kind of segue as we kind of flip the page on last week and look at next week. You guys go to, I think you guys are at the SAC. Is that right?
No, we're at home.
It's another home game. Okay.
Yeah.
And so you play Americas, right?
Yes, sir.
So what can you, I guess, kind of foreshadow for the Americas? I know that they've got some really good backs, but I saw where Pebble Hills kind of kept them in check. Is that something that you guys are kind of looking at as well going into this week?
Yeah, they're really good at running the stretch and outside zone with both their running backs, with Cameron Johnson and Maurice Edwards and Joaquin Hernandez. So you look at their first 2 games, they're really hard to stop, out there on the edge. So we're gonna have to really set the edge hard and try to funnel them into the inside of our defense with our D tackles and our inside backers. They run a lot of formations, a lot of shifts, trying to get the numbers advantage and get you out of place. So, defensively, we've got to be on our P's and Q's, especially making sure that we're lined up first and foremost correctly. And in the back end, our secondary can't have dirty eyes. They've got to make sure they're keying their keys and staying in coverage and not getting lost. Defensively, they base out of an odd front. I think Coach Poblano has been one of the best defensive coordinators and defensive minds here in the city for the past 20 plus years. With his experience, not just at Chapin, but at Montwood, and then now, of course, calling the shots at Americas. And so they're a very sound defense. They get in and out of that odd front and get into somewhat of a 4-3 look. So we're expecting them to load the box. And that's kind of it. As much as we're running the ball and committed to the run, a big thing for us is to see how they're going to play with their safeties, to get their safeties involved. But they're a very athletic team, very well coached. Um, don't give up a lot of deep passes. They kind of keep everything in front of them. I feel like they're a disciplined defense that rallies to the ball well. They play with a lot of energy, and so they're 2-1 going into this game just like us, and so they haven't been very far removed from 6A competition.
Yeah,
So
I
they
was gonna say
understand.
that. I was gonna ask that question. You have to think they still have. I can't say remnants, but they still got that 6A size.
Yeah, they still have the size and the speed, and their numbers look healthy. And that coaching staff, Coach Robles and his staff, they're coming from Eastlake, where they've been around a successful program in 6A, and previously to that, they were at Montwood. So I think the staff as a whole, and even those kids, they understand the level, and they're playing at a 6A level. So the fact that they're a 5A team, um, really doesn't have any impact on this game. I think those kids and that community, as well as that coach's staff, will be ready to go and approach it, are approaching it the same way.
Yeah. No. I'm sitting up here now. I was trying to see the. Yeah, because that was one of the things that I think Pebble Hills keyed in on was their running game. They really stifled them a lot in their running game and looked like they were able to run a lot as well. So, how do you guys see? And we kind of touched on this personnel wise matching up with America's. You guys seeing any
Well,
issues for you guys?
yeah, I mean, if we let them get loose on the edge, they've got the speed, to make some explosive plays out there. So we've got to stay at home. One of the things that we've been, kind of hurting ourselves on, this is 2 weeks in a row, a team's trying to reverse on us. And so as much as I love the effort of our kids and their pursuit backside, they got to understand that they got to stay home and check those backside keys before they take off. Um, and obviously America's seen that on film, and they'll have a plan of attack for us. Um, but I do think that, for us, our offensive line and our running back is a big advantage, for us when I look at the matchups. Um, and then defensively, I do think that their strength is going against our strength when I'm looking at our front seven or our box seven. So we just got to make sure that we don't get burned or give up too much in the play action vertical game. They do have the ability to throw the ball and stretch the field. And so as much as they're committed to running the ball as well, they will hurt you with the pass game
So
if you lend it.
is it almost a mirror image of playing them for you guys?
Well, right now I think when you look at it, they're probably throwing the ball in a little more balance than we are. And so that's been a point of emphasis for us last week, and it'll be a point of emphasis for us this week. I mean, we do have guys out on the edge that can make plays for us, and we got to get them the ball. And I think that we're right on track as far as where we want to be when it comes to install and growing our offense. and digging into our toolbox of plays. And so I think as these weeks keep, as we keep moving forward through the season, and the quarterback gets more comfortable with the new scheme and the new play calls, I think you'll see us somewhat balance out. But at the end of the day, at the beginning and the end of the day, we're going to run the ball and hand it to number 4. There's no secret about that.
So this is you guys' last game before you start district play.
Mm-hmm.
And I know as a coach, a lot of times you guys try to, well, I won't even say you guys, we as coaches try to not show everything before we get into district play. Has that been some of this, or are you guys still, because it's a new staff, still doing some of the install and kind of building up to that district play?
Um, I think it's more of new staff, new scheme. This staff didn't have a chance to go through spring ball with these players and vice versa. I also think the players are still learning. We're all still learning each other, but as I've grown as a coach, staying on schedule and making sure that we're getting good at our base and what we know we're going to do week in and week out is always the focus at the beginning of the year.
Yep.
Do we have wrinkles and things that we look to attack our opponent week to week? Absolutely. But the one thing that we all have in common is time, and we're all allotted the same amount of time to practice each week and prepare as far as on the field with our kids. And so I think sometimes coaches, and I did this early on, you get into you fall into that trap of trying to do too much early,
Yeah.
and you don't get a chance to really get good at anything. And I mean, and don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of things we've got to clean up on in all 3 phases of the game. And whether it's our base defense, our base offense, our base kickoff, um, so that's still the main thing and the main point for us. I mean, when you look at a game and you look at your play selection, those things that you're looking to attack another team with, you've got to make sure you practice them a significant amount of time during that week. And then you go into that game and you might run them, 3 to 5 times a game. The bulk of what you're still running is your base offense and your base formations. And I think that's what the good teams are really good at and focus on practice. And so it's no different with us. We're going to play to the strengths of our players. And as we continue to grow and understand our players and what they're good at, there's some things that look good on a whiteboard that don't necessarily transition to our specific skill set. And so we've got to be very mindful of that as a staff. But what I will say is that within our scheme, there were some adjustments that we had to make at halftime and even within the third quarter. And I was really proud of our defensive staff and our offensive staff on the adjustments that they were able to make that were within our scheme, and some things that we didn't practice because we didn't foresee having to do those to, combat what Lubbock Monterey was doing. And so I think that the experience of our staff and the quality of our staff really paid dividends for us this week or this past week in getting that win here at home. But, again, to answer your question, for us, it's getting better at what we're going to do week in and week out. And then, we slowly start to integrate some of the variances off of our base passing game. But it all has to match, and when I say that, whatever our play action game is, it's got to match our run game. And those things have got to be, in the same wheelhouse as each other for us to incorporate that into our game plan.
Definitely. And I only bring that up, Coach, because we live in a very microwave society right now. Everybody wants everything going the way they want it going right now. And sometimes the process gets overlooked as you look towards the end goal. And I just want to make sure that the fans and people watching this season play out realize that you guys are going through a process to get to a goal that it's going to take some time for everything to hit on all cylinders the way you guys want it to, but enjoy the journey as you do it.
Yeah, without question. I mean, you look at there's only one football on the field, right? And
Yep.
so only one guy's carrying that ball. And so, you're always going to hear, especially as a head coach, why is this guy always getting the ball, or everybody knows this guy's getting it. Um, we know that too, as coaches. But as we're going through the week, Monday's a heavy install day for us, things that we're going to try, things that we're going to implement. This is a short week. We play on Thursday. So in a normal week, usually, at the end of Tuesday, we're condensing a little bit. And then Wednesday, there's a little bit more that's trimmed and that we're not going in with. And so now, like, you look at a week like this against a good America's team, we're going to have to make those adjustments and kind of trim some of the fat, if you will, Monday. So it's a big thing for us in our process not to put a whole lot in this week, so that we're not having to, cram it all in or rush that process. But, there's a lot of things that don't look good in practice, and that, as a coach yourself, if it doesn't look good on Monday and Tuesday, it's probably not going to look good Thursday night. And so, every play counts. Every possession counts, and so we can't afford, regardless of who we're playing, to waste the play. And I think when you look at good teams, yeah, a lot of times they're running the same plays over and over, and it's because they're good at them, and the kids are confident in them, and so that's why you see some of that. But I learned a long time ago to let the fans be the fans, and um, I focus on coaching and winning football games and putting our team in the best position to win. Um, it's not about who I'm trying to get the ball or who we're trying to get the ball to, or we don't go in there to feature a guy necessarily. It's, what's hitting, what's working, and what's going to give us the best opportunity to win the football game.
Definitely. And so in basketball, we will run the same play until you stop it. And then we're going to run it again just to make sure that it wasn't a fluke that you stopped it. So, because at the end of the day, for us as coaches, we want to put our teams in the best position to win. Because you're gonna hear fans' mouths whether you win or lose. So you might as well, I'd rather hear it when I win than on a loss. So let's put these kids in the best position to be successful and win, because we both know that winning cures a lot of things.
Yeah, it does. It cures most things for sure. I know last week when I was sitting here talking with you, I was feeling a lot different than I am right now, right? And so, that's a very true statement. You feel a lot different, after a win than you do a loss, and you hear a lot less
Yep.
when you win than when you lose. So
Definitely.
there's a lot of truth in that.
And I always said that if you're winning and people are complaining, it's because they have selfish motivation behind it. And
Yeah, without
so
question.
and so I commend you guys, Coach. Continue to keep doing what you're doing and continue to grind. Is there anything else you want to say in closing?
No, I think that overall, as we head into this fourth week, And then, you look at the week after that, we start district play. Um, things start kind of, figuring themselves out. And
Yeah,
so, um, this is, kind of the next step in the process when you hit that week 4, playing wise and seeing where your team is at. And like I said, I think we're on the right pace of where we want to be. Um, and we're hoping that we continue to improve for sure. But, then we get into district play. And so, that week 6, 7 is where I think teams kind of start hitting their stride. For us, we've established our identity, and that's not going to change. But now we've got to build off of that and add a little bit more um, to how we're going to attack people and
definitely.
minimize their attacks. And so there's still a lot of room for improvement across the board, but we know who we are, and now it's just a matter of getting better at it.
Definitely. Well, Coach, it's been a pleasure as always having you join us here. Folks, it's been another episode of the Borderland Sports Report. We did this one live. So tune in, catch us on Sundays for the week wrap up. Peace out.